Have you ever noticed how some books or methods get endorsed by people from completely different fields?
Yeah, it's like, what could a world-famous violinist and a military leader possibly have in common?
That's what's so intriguing about today's deep dive.
Okay.
We're looking at Awareness Through Movement by Moshe Feldenkrais.
Sounds interesting.
It's one of those methods that seems to have resonated across all these diverse fields. So we're going to try to see what we can uncover about this approach to improving the mind-body connection.
Yeah, you don't often see a physicist and a judo expert creating a system that appeals to artists and intellectuals.
Right.
And even military strategists. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think what we'll find is that Feldenkrais tapped into something universal about human potential.
Yeah, regardless of like your specific field.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the first things that struck me in the book was his idea of the self-image.
Hmm.
It's not just about how we see ourselves in the mirror, you know,
Right.
but it's literally like mapped onto our brains, shaping how we move and even what we believe we're capable of doing.
He's talking about a mental representation of our physical abilities, our limitations.
Okay.
It's fascinating because this map in our motor cortex is constantly evolving based on what we learn and practice.
So is he saying our brains are actually different?
In a way, yes. The neural pathways that get used frequently become stronger.
Right.
And those that don't can become weaker.
Yeah.
But here's the important part.
Okay.
Feldenkrais suggests this means our self-image, even when it's limiting us, isn't fixed.
So you mean like if I always thought I was bad at dancing because I never learned as a kid, it's not that I'm like incapable of dancing.
Exactly.
It's just my brain hasn't developed those pathways.
By intentionally exploring new movements, challenging those old beliefs, you can reshape your self-image and unlock new possibilities.
Okay, so how do we actually go about changing this map in our brains?
That's the question, isn't it?
He seems to focus a lot on movement, even though the book is about like this mind-body connection.
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but Feldenkrais chose movement as his primary tool for a few reasons.
Okay.
He believed that movement is the most direct way to communicate with and influence our nervous system.
So by changing how we move, we can change how our brains are wired.
Precisely. And because we can understand our physical sensations, more easily than abstract thoughts,
Yeah.
working with movement allows us to directly experience how those changes are happening.
So it's not just about physical exercise.
Right.
It's about using movement as a tool for self-awareness and ultimately for changing our self-image.
You got it.
I see.
One of his key insights is, we do not become aware of what is happening in our central nervous system until we become aware of changes that have taken place in our stance, stability, and attitude. That really highlights the profound connection between how we move and how we perceive ourselves.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those of us who feel pretty comfortable with our physical abilities?
Right.
Is there still something to gain from this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Feldenkrais believed that human activity naturally progresses through 3 stages.
Okay.
First, the natural stage, where we act instinctively like children. Then the stage of individual learning and refining our skills.
Okay.
And finally, a stage of systematized methods.
So you're saying even if you've like mastered a specific skill, like playing an instrument or a sport,
Right.
there's still another level of development to be explored.
That's right. And sometimes focusing too much on the right way to do something, especially in those highly systematized fields,
Yeah.
can actually limit our natural exploration and spontaneity.
I can definitely see how that happens. You get so focused on technique that you forget to play and explore
Exactly.
and kind of discover new possibilities within the activity.
And sometimes the things we struggle with as adults, like singing or dancing or even just feeling comfortable in our own bodies,
Yeah.
are things we never fully explored in those early stages of development.
So even for someone who's spent their whole life focusing on one specific activity, there's still room for that like childlike sense of exploration.
Absolutely, through movement. It's about rediscovering that sense of playfulness and curiosity, allowing ourselves to move freely and discover new possibilities.
I'm starting to understand how this idea of movement being the nervous system's primary language ties into changing our self-image. But can you give me a concrete example of how this works in practice?
Sure, let's talk about posture.
Okay.
We often think of good posture as this rigid, static ideal.
Yeah.
but Feldenkrais viewed it as a dynamic state of effortless equilibrium.
Effortless equilibrium.
He even compares it to a pendulum hanging at rest.
A pendulum. How does that relate to posture?
Well, a pendulum hanging straight down is perfectly balanced, requiring no effort to stay in that position. That's the kind of effortless alignment he's talking about with posture.
So it's less about forcing your body into a certain position.
Right.
It's more about finding this natural, effortless alignment.
Exactly. And that's where movement comes in. By exploring different movements, paying attention to how your body feels, you start to identify and release habitual tension.
Yeah.
That's preventing you from finding that effortless balance.
I see. So even simple actions like sitting or standing can become these opportunities for self-discovery.
Exactly.
When approached with this kind of awareness.
And remember, those seemingly small changes in how you move can have a ripple effect on your entire nervous system, leading to changes in how you feel, how you think, and how you interact with the world.
That's amazing. But I'm curious, how does this connect to the idea of effective action, which we talked about earlier? Is it just about making movement easier, or is there something more to it?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Effective action, for Feldenkrais, isn't just about achieving a goal.
Okay.
It's about doing it in a way that actually improves your body's capacity for future action.
So it's not just about getting the job done.
No.
It's about doing it in a way that's actually beneficial for your body in the long run?
Precisely. And he emphasizes these hallmarks of effective movement.
Right.
Smooth, easy, free of unnecessary tension. It's about developing what he calls harmonious development. Think about it. When was the last time you felt like you were really moving well? What did it feel like?
I guess the times I feel most in the flow are when I'm playing tennis and everything just clicks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not thinking about my technique. I'm just reacting, moving effortlessly, hitting the ball exactly where I want it to go.
Exactly. And Feldenkrais suggests that feeling of effortlessness, that sense of flow, is something we can cultivate in all our actions, not just in those specialized activities.
I see.
It's about learning to move in a way that's both efficient and enjoyable, where the feeling of difficulty simply melts away.
That's such a powerful concept. It makes me realize that maybe I've been approaching movement all wrong.
Well, one of the most fascinating things about Feldenkrais is that he challenges us to rethink our assumptions about movement.
Okay.
And learning in general. He even goes so far as to suggest that mental rehearsal can be even more effective than physical practice in some cases.
Mental rehearsal, like just imagining yourself moving in a certain way.
Exactly. He describes an experiment in the book where people practice a complex movement on one side of their body while only visualizing it on the other.
Oh, wait, what happened?
The results were astonishing. The side that only visualized often showed greater improvement than the side that actually practiced physically.
Wait, so just by imagining yourself moving in a certain way, you can rewire your brain and improve your physical abilities?
That's the implication. And it connects back to this idea of the self-image being a map that we can change.
Right.
Feldenkrais suggests that mental rehearsal allows us to refine that internal map without the interference of old habits or physical limitations.
This is seriously blowing my mind. It's like he's saying our imagination can be a powerful tool for change.
Exactly. And it opens up a whole world of possibilities for self-improvement, even if we're facing physical challenges or limitations.
This is just the first part of our deep dive, and I'm already feeling like I'm seeing movement in a whole new light.
Yeah.
I'm excited to keep going.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover about his method and how it can help us unlock our full potential. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how even just visualizing a movement can lead to physical changes.
It's pretty mind-blowing in itself. It really makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there for self-improvement.
Yeah.
Like if we can change our brains just by thinking about moving differently, what else might be possible?
That's what's so exciting about exploring the Feldenkrais method. It really does open up all these questions about the power of the mind to shape our physical reality. And that brings us back to one of the key takeaways, I think, from this deep dive. We act according to our self-image, that mental map in our brains.
Right. And the more we learn about this map, the more we can see how much of what we consider limitations might actually be learned patterns of movement and thought that we can change.
Exactly. And Feldenkrais gives us these movement lessons, not like strenuous exercise, but gentle, mindful movements to help us expand that map. He encourages approaching these lessons with curiosity, noticing the subtle sensations as we move in different ways. It's all about tuning in to what your body is telling you.
It sounds a lot like moving meditation, which I could see being beneficial for both physical and mental clarity.
It is very much about bringing that mindful awareness to movement. And as we do that, we start to gain a deeper understanding, not just of our physical selves, but also of our mental and emotional patterns, because it's all connected.
Right.
Remember, Feldenkrais believed the mind and body are inseparable.
So by changing how we move, we can change how we think and feel.
Precisely.
It all comes back to that mind-body connection.
And this links back to our conversation about posture being a dynamic state of balance.
Right.
Feldenkrais emphasizes moving with fluidity and ease, avoiding unnecessary tension in all our actions.
It's like finding that effortless flow of a pendulum like we talked about. It just feels better and more efficient, not fighting against ourselves.
Exactly. He calls this effective action, where the goal isn't just to do the task, but to do it in a way that enhances our well-being. Think about some everyday activity you do. Maybe walking, sitting at your desk, even brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Where could you apply this principle of effective action?
Wow, now that you mention it, I realize I do so many things on autopilot without even thinking about how I'm moving. I bet I could find a lot more ease and efficiency in those everyday movements.
It's in those everyday actions that we often have the most opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah.
By bringing awareness to them, we can cultivate a new sense of awareness and embodiment.
It's not just exercises. It's like a whole new way of approaching life, being present in our bodies and more in tune with our inner experience.
That's a great way to put it. It's a journey of self-discovery, and it's available to everyone, regardless of age or ability. Feldenkrais believed we all have this innate capacity for learning and development, and his method helps us unlock that potential.
So even if someone feels like they're uncoordinated or they have physical limitations,
Right.
they can still benefit from this approach.
Absolutely. It's never too late to learn and explore new ways of moving. Now, remember we talked about how our physical structure and how we function are connected?
Yeah, it seemed like he was saying they influence each other.
Right.
It's not just one way.
And he was fascinated by how we can use movement to improve both. For example, someone with a hunched posture from years of sitting at a desk has literally shaped their body that way. But through learning new movements and improving spinal alignment, they can reverse that pattern and improve both their posture and their overall well-being.
So it's like we can use movement to actually reshape our bodies for the better.
That's the idea. And as we improve our structure and function, we enhance our awareness of our bodies and our environment. We become more sensitive to the subtle feedback our body gives us.
Like our senses become more alive and we can kind of experience the world with more depth.
Exactly. And as our awareness expands, so does our potential. We become more adaptable, creative, and resilient.
This is really making me rethink what the human body is capable of. You know, it's one thing to talk about these concepts, but having a system of practical tools to actually experience these principles is what really excites me.
And that's the beauty of the Feldenkrais method. It's not just theory. He provides specific exercises and techniques to help people experience these principles firsthand. One of the key principles he emphasizes is learning through differentiation.
What does differentiation mean in this context?
It means becoming aware of the subtle distinctions between different movements and sensations. For example, in one of his lessons, he might ask you to move your shoulder in a slightly different way, paying close attention to how it feels.
So it's like making tiny adjustments. And noticing those subtle differences to gain a deeper understanding of how our bodies work.
Exactly. It's like fine-tuning a musical instrument. You're becoming more precise and nuanced in your movements.
It's interesting because it's like a musician training their ear to hear subtle variations in pitch or rhythm, like developing that same kind of refined sensitivity.
That's a great analogy. And just like a musician, as we refine our awareness of movement, we gain more control and fluidity in our actions.
And this could apply to so many different areas of life, not just physical movement.
Exactly. You can apply Feldenkrais's principles of awareness, differentiation, and effective action to anything from learning a new language to improving your relationships.
Wow.
It's about bringing that same mindfulness and intention to everything you do.
And by doing that, you open up all these possibilities for growth and creativity. Now, I want to touch on something that might surprise some listeners. Feldenkrais dedicates a lot of time to the topic of breathing.
Yeah.
Seems so basic, but he emphasizes it quite a bit. Why is that?
Because he recognized that breathing is so much more than just taking in oxygen.
Okay.
It's this fundamental act that connects our physical body with our mental and emotional states.
So it's not just about keeping us alive, but it also influences how we think and feel.
Precisely. And Feldenkrais points out that most of us aren't breathing as efficiently as we could be. We develop habits that restrict our breath and limit our access to its full potential.
Like, what kinds of habits are we talking about?
Think about how often you hold your breath without realizing it,
Uh-huh.
especially when you're stressed or focused. Or how shallow your breathing becomes when you're sitting at a desk for long periods.
Oh, I know. I do both of those. I never really considered how those habits might impact my energy or my well-being.
And Feldenkrais argued that by becoming aware of our breath and learning to breathe more fully, more consciously, we can improve not just our physical health, but also our mental clarity and emotional resilience.
So it's like breathing is this hidden superpower we all have,
Yeah,
but we're not using it to its full potential.
I like that analogy. And Feldenkrais offers a whole series of exercises to help us tap into that power. He encourages us to explore different ways of breathing using our entire respiratory system.
Okay, so what are some of the benefits of breathing more consciously?
For one, it can help reduce stress and anxiety. When we breathe deeply, it signals to our nervous system to relax. It can also improve focus and concentration, as well as boost energy levels.
Wow, that's quite a list. It's no wonder he considered breathing so essential to his method.
It's really about connecting with our life force, our vitality. Breathing is the most fundamental act that keeps us alive.
Yeah.
And when we pay attention to it, we cultivate a deeper connection to ourselves.
Yeah, it makes it feel so much more powerful. Not just this mundane thing we do without thinking.
Exactly. And one thing he emphasizes is that there's no one right way to breathe. It's about finding what works best for you and exploring different possibilities.
That makes sense. It's like with movement, it's not about conforming to some rigid ideal.
Yeah.
It's about finding what feels most natural and effortless for your body.
Precisely. And by bringing awareness to our breath, we open up this whole new dimension of self-discovery.
Now, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the role of the nervous system in all of this.
This is where it gets really interesting. Feldenkrais had a deep understanding of how the nervous system influences our actions.
Okay.
He believed our movements weren't just mechanical actions,
Right.
but expressions of how our nervous systems are organized.
So how we move reflects how our brains are wired.
Exactly. And he argued that we can actually change that wiring through movement.
Wait, are you saying we can rewire our brains by moving our bodies differently?
That's the idea. It's called neuroplasticity. And Feldenkrais was ahead of his time in understanding how we can harness its power to improve our movement and well-being.
That's incredible. So it's not just about strengthening muscles or increasing flexibility, but actually changing how our brains control our movements.
Right. And by doing so, we can overcome limitations, improve our coordination, and unlock new possibilities for movement.
So it's about retraining our nervous systems to move in a more efficient and harmonious way.
Precisely. His awareness through movement lessons were designed to do just that. It's like upgrading the software that runs our bodies.
That's a great analogy, but just like a software upgrade, it takes time to reprogram things.
Of course.
Yeah.
But the results can be transformative. And it ties back to this idea that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just about doing, it's about understanding. True learning involves not just physical practice, but a deep understanding of the principles behind the movements.
So it's not just going through the motions, but really engaging your mind and becoming more conscious of what you're doing and why.
Exactly. He wanted people to develop what he called kinesthetic awareness,
Okay.
a deep understanding of how their bodies move and how those movements relate to their overall well-being.
So it's about moving with intention and intelligence, not just blindly following instructions.
Exactly. And that's why he encourages paying attention to your sensations, noticing the subtle differences, and reflecting on your experience. You're becoming a scientist of your own body.
Experimenting, observing, drawing conclusions. I love that. It's like we're unlocking this hidden language of the body.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the more fluent you become in that language, the more control you gain over your movements, your health, and ultimately your life.
This is revolutionary stuff.
It is. And what's remarkable is that Feldenkrais's ideas are just as relevant today as they were when he first introduced them.
Yeah.
In fact, they might be even more relevant in our modern world, where so many of us are disconnected from our bodies
Right.
and living in our heads.
It's a powerful antidote to the stress and distractions of modern life. reclaiming our physical selves and finding that sense of grounding and presence.
Absolutely. And as we cultivate that sense of embodiment, we cultivate a deeper sense of well-being.
This deep dive is really opening my eyes to new possibilities, inspiring me to explore his work further.
And that's what we hope for. I encourage you to do just that. Pick up awareness through movement, try out the lessons, and see where it takes you.
I definitely will. Now, before we wrap up this part, I want to go back to the idea of harmonious development. It seems to be a theme throughout his approach.
You're right, it's one of his core principles. He believed true health and well-being involved not just physical or mental fitness, but a harmonious integration of every aspect of our being.
So it's not about focusing on one part of ourselves at the expense of others, but finding that balance and integration between the physical, the mental, the emotional, and even spiritual.
Exactly. And his movement lessons are designed to facilitate that integration. They aren't just about strengthening muscles or flexibility. They're about cultivating a deeper awareness of ourselves as whole beings. It's like tuning an instrument, bringing all the different parts into alignment so they can work together.
That's beautiful. And as we achieve that harmony, we unlock our full potential.
It's about moving beyond the limitations of our self-image and embracing the fullness of who we truly are.
This deep dive has been a fantastic journey of discovery, and it doesn't end here. It's something we can continue to explore throughout our lives.
Absolutely. And in the next part, we'll leave you with some final thoughts to ponder as you continue your own journey of self-discovery through movement.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this awareness through movement by Moshe Feldenkrais, and I have to say this has been one of the most thought-provoking deep dives we've done.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he, drawing from, such diverse fields like physics and judo, developed a method that speaks to something so fundamental about human potential.
It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about learning and self-improvement.
Right.
One of the biggest takeaways for me is just this idea that change is possible at any age.
Absolutely. It's never too late to explore new ways of moving, thinking, and feeling.
Yeah.
Feldenkrais provides this amazing framework for lifelong learning and growth, and he encourages us to approach everything with that, that childlike curiosity, to be playful and willing to experiment.
Like, forget about striving for some, perfect outcome.
Right.
And just enjoy the process of discovering what your body and mind were capable of.
And, as we've been discussing his work, it strikes me that Feldenkrais is constantly challenging us to question our assumptions about what's possible.
He's asking us to take a closer look at those limitations we've placed on ourselves, both physical and mental, and see if maybe we can push past them.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
You might uncover hidden talents. You might overcome those limitations that have been holding you back. And you might just find a whole new sense of freedom and vitality.
It's like we're tapping into this wellspring of potential that we didn't even know existed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Remember how Feldenkrais talked about the power of visualization?
Uh-huh.
How simply imagining a movement can actually rewire our brains.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing.
Well, if that's true, if our thoughts can have that much of an impact on our physical reality, what other possibilities are out there for self-improvement through focused awareness?
It's such an intriguing question. It really makes you think about the untapped power of our minds.
It does.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that this deep dive is just the beginning. The real learning starts when you take these ideas and you put them into practice in your own life.
So pick up a copy of Awareness Through Movement, experiment with the lessons, and see where your journey takes you.
You might be amazed by what you discover about yourself.
Yeah, and remember, the journey of self-discovery doesn't end with this deep dive.
It's an ongoing process of exploration and growth.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of Moshe Feldenkrais and awareness through movement.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep moving.